The first warning came not from sophisticated sensors or advanced detection systems, but from an old-fashioned coffee mug. Dr. Sarah Chen was midway through her third cup of industrial-strength coffee when the ceramic mug began to vibrate. Not a gentle tremor. This was a deep, resonant shake that spoke of something massive approaching. Something impossible. Jupiter Research Station had seen its share of anomalies. Micrometeorite impacts, solar radiation fluctuations, quantum experimental glitches that made reality itself seem to hiccup. But this was different. Marcus Rodriguez, the station's chief of maintenance, felt it first in his bones. A veteran of 15 years in deep space operations, he knew the difference between routine station movements and something fundamentally wrong. His hands, permanently stained with a constellation of machine oil and microcircuit residue, went still over the maintenance panel. "Chen," he called out, his voice cutting through the station's constant background hum of machinery. "Something's not right." Sarah was already moving. Her quantum physics doctorate wasn't just a piece of paper, it was a toolkit for understanding the impossible. She pulled up the station's comprehensive sensor array, fingers dancing across holographic displays that flickered with impossible speed. The first visual contact came precisely 37 seconds later. They materialized like a nightmare-given form. Zornak battleships, each easily dwarfing the entire Jupiter Research Station, punched through hyperspace with a silent, terrifying grace. Their hulls gleamed with technologies so advanced they seemed to bend light itself, surfaces shifting and reconfiguring in ways that defied human understanding of material science. Holy! Marcus's curse was cut short. Sarah's scientific mind was already racing. The ships weren't just large. They were impossible. Computational models suggested energy signatures that violated everything humanity understood about physics. Propulsion systems that seemed to laugh at the very concept of conservation of energy. Weapon capabilities that made humanity's most advanced military technology look like children's toys. But humans have always been good at impossible. The station's emergency protocols were designed for 100 different scenarios. Micrometeorite impacts, solar radiation spikes, quantum experiment containment breaches, and alien invasion was decidedly not in the manual. "Lockdown sequence," Sarah muttered, her fingers flying across the interface. But this wasn't panic. This was calculation. Marcus was already moving. Years of maintenance experience meant he knew every centimeter of the station. Emergency bulkheads, backup power systems, experimental quantum communication arrays that were technically still classified. "We're not going down," he said. It wasn't a hope. It was a promise. The station's 217 personnel represented humanity's most brilliant, most adaptable minds. Scientists, engineers, maintenance crews, medical specialists. Each one selected not just for their expertise, but for their ability to improvise. The Zornak's first mistake was assuming technological superiority meant guaranteed victory. Their second mistake was not understanding what humans do when cornered. As the massive alien ships began their approach, something remarkable happened. No panic, no chaos. Just a sudden, electric sense of collective purpose that spread through the station faster than any communication system could transmit. Sarah caught Marcus's eye. No words were needed. In that moment, survival wasn't just a possibility. It was a mathematical certainty they would calculate, engineer, and absolutely refuse to be denied. Outside, the massive Zornak ships continued their approach. Inside Jupiter Research Station, humanity was already 3 impossible solutions ahead. The first hour of the invasion would become a case study in human improvisation that would be discussed throughout the galaxy for generations. Marcus Rodriguez stood in the station's central maintenance hub, surrounded by a chaos that would have broken lesser teams. Wall-mounted screens flickered with alien sensor readings. Experimental equipment that had been collecting dust for years suddenly looked like potential weapons. "We need to turn everything we have into something they don't expect," he announced. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a mission statement. Dr. Elena Vargas, a materials engineer with a reputation for impossible solutions, was already one step ahead. Her eyes scanned the room like a predator, seeing potential where others saw only equipment. The station's industrial-grade 3D printer became their first miracle. Designed for creating replacement parts and research components, Marcus realized it could become something far more dangerous. Within minutes, Vargas had reprogrammed its molecular deposition systems to create micro-munitions with tolerances that would make military engineers weep. "Not bullets," she muttered, fingers dancing across the control interface. "Precision delivery systems." The mining laser, originally intended for geological research on Jupiter's moons, became their first line of defense. Sarah Chen's quantum modifications transformed it from a scientific instrument into a weapon that could potentially punch through alien shielding. But weapons were only part of the solution. The station's quantum communication array, an experimental system that had been considered a career-ending project for its original designers, now became their primary intelligence gathering tool. Sarah discovered that by manipulating quantum entanglement principles, they could create a communication network the Zornak couldn't intercept or understand. "It's not about fighting their technology," she explained to the gathered team. "It's about making our technology so fundamentally different that they can't predict it." In the medical bay, Dr. James Liu was performing his own brand of improvisation. The station's advanced medical fabrication units, designed for creating custom prosthetics and treatment protocols, were being reconfigured into emergency field medical systems that could adapt faster than any alien medical technology. "Our strength is adaptability," Liu said, connecting experimental nano-repair systems in ways they were never intended to be used. "They have fixed systems. We have living, breathing innovation." The station's hydroponics section became an unexpected fortress. What was once a carefully controlled agricultural research environment transformed into a complex life support and defensive system. Genetically modified plants became air filtration units. Specialized growth chambers could be sealed and pressurized in seconds. Communication between teams happened in a language of rapid, almost telepathic efficiency. No long meetings, no bureaucratic delays. Just pure, focused problem-solving. Marcus watched a maintenance drone, originally designed for external hull repairs, being modified with experimental sensor packages and makeshift weapon systems. A junior engineer named Aisha Khan was literally duct-taping additional sensors to its frame, her movements precise and purposeful. "They think technology is about perfection," Marcus muttered. "We know it's about possibility." Each modification, each repurposed system told a story. Humanity didn't just adapt. They transformed. Where the Zornak saw a research station, the humans saw a living, breathing weapon of pure innovation. The alien ships continued their approach. Inside Jupiter Research Station, humanity was rewriting the rules of engagement with every passing second. Diego Alvarez looked nothing like a weapon of war. 42 years old, with a perfectly trimmed beard and glasses that had seen better days, he had spent the last decade of his life in marketing. Before the invasion, his greatest battle had been convincing consumers to buy plant-based protein alternatives. Now he was about to wage psychological warfare against an alien civilization. The Zornak's first communication burst arrived precisely at 300 hours station time. A massive data transmission that would have broken lesser communication systems, filled with what could only be described as an ultimatum of total surrender. Diego's response would become legendary. He gathered a team that looked more like a bizarre startup than a resistance unit. A retired internet meme creator. A quantum linguist with a background in stand-up comedy. A neural network specialist who had previously designed chatbots for customer service. And a handful of communication experts who had spent their careers understanding the most complex human interactions. "They want a language of intimidation," Diego explained, spreading out a holographic display of the alien transmission. "We're going to give them something they cannot possibly understand." The first return transmission was a masterpiece of deliberate chaos. It began with what appeared to be a perfectly formatted military response. for exactly 2.7 seconds. Then it dissolved into a carefully constructed linguistic nightmare, technical jargon mixed with internet memes, quantum mechanics equations interspersed with dad jokes, references to obscure human cultural moments that would take years to decode. In the communication center, Sarah Chen watched the transmission with a mixture of professional curiosity and barely contained amusement. "Is that a reference to a viral cat video from 2019? She asked, watching a complex mathematical formula suddenly transform into a gif of a cat wearing sunglasses. Diego grinned. "Exactly." The Zornak communication analysis systems began to break down. Their advanced AI, designed to parse and understand complex interstellar communications, simply could not process what it was receiving. Each attempt to analyze the transmission created more confusion. One Zornak communication officer was reported to have suffered a complete mental breakdown after receiving a transmission that was 73% quantum mechanics equations, 22% deliberately mistranslated idioms, and 5% references to human romantic comedies. But it wasn't just about confusion. Each transmission was a carefully constructed psychological operation. The team discovered that the Zornak, for all their technological advancement, had a fundamentally linear way of thinking. They understood hierarchy, clear communication, precise information transfer. Humans, by contrast, communicated in layers, in memes, in jokes, in references that required cultural context. Their communication was a living, breathing ecosystem of meaning. "We're not just sending messages," Diego explained during one strategy session. "We're sending puzzles, challenges, pieces of a cultural DNA that they cannot possibly comprehend." The station's quantum communication array became their primary weapon. Each transmission was a work of art, a deliberate, meticulously crafted piece of psychological warfare that would make traditional military strategists weep. As the alien ships continued their approach, the humans of Jupiter Research Station were rewriting the very concept of communication. They weren't just resisting. They were playing a game the Zornak didn't even know existed. The global research response happened with a speed that would become legendary. Dr. Elena Rodriguez didn't look like someone about to change the course of human history. 36 years old, with perpetually messy hair and coffee stains on her lab coat, she stood in the hastily converted research center that had once been a Silicon Valley think tank. Around her, the world's most brilliant minds were engaged in a collaboration unlike anything in human history. Universities emptied their labs. Tech companies paused product development. Military research facilities opened their most classified archives. The entire human scientific community became a single distributed supercomputer with one mission: survival. "We're not just researching," Elena explained to the gathered team of physicists, engineers, and computational experts. "We're reimagining everything we know about technology." The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura, a quantum computing specialist who had spent the last decade working on esoteric problems of quantum entanglement, realized something profound. The Zornak's technological superiority was also their greatest weakness. Their systems were complex, sophisticated, absolutely predictable. Human technology, by contrast, was messy, imperfect, constantly evolving. The research centers became crucibles of innovation. A neural network specialist discovered a way to create communication protocols that would be completely incomprehensible to the alien systems. A materials engineer found a method to create adaptive shielding that could change its fundamental molecular structure faster than any targeting system could track. In a basement lab in Cambridge, a team of young researchers discovered how to use quantum entanglement in ways that would make traditional communication look like smoke signals. Their breakthrough could potentially create a communication network that existed outside of conventional spacetime. "It's not about having the most advanced technology," Elena would later write in her now famous research notes. "It's about having technology that can change faster than the enemy can understand." The global research effort wasn't just about defense. It was about transformation. Military research facilities shared data with civilian research centers. Open-source platforms became battlegrounds of innovation. Crowdsourced problem-solving happened at a scale never before seen in human history. A retired engineer in Mumbai discovered a potential method for energy transmission that could potentially disrupt the alien ship's power systems. A group of high school students in Sao Paulo developed an algorithm that could potentially create communication interference patterns. Every piece of human knowledge became a potential weapon. The Zornak had been preparing for a conventional invasion. They had not prepared for a species that could turn its entire civilization into a research and development platform overnight. Computational models were being generated and discarded faster than the aliens could possibly analyze them. Each potential solution was a puzzle piece in a massive, collaborative effort that spanned continents, cultures, and disciplines. Marcus Rodriguez from Jupiter Research Station found himself coordinating with research teams across the globe. What had started as a localized defense effort was now a global transformation. They think technology is about perfection, he told Elena during one of their encrypted communications. We know it's about possibility. As the alien ships continued their approach, humanity was rewriting the very concept of technological innovation. They weren't just preparing to defend. They were preparing to completely redefine the rules of engagement. The Martian Agricultural Research Base was never meant to be a fortress. 12 kilometers of ruddy landscape stretched between the sealed biodomes, each one a delicate ecosystem of carefully cultivated plants and experimental agricultural technologies. Dr. Amara Okoye had spent the last 3 years developing hydroponic systems that could survive in the most challenging environments imaginable. She hadn't imagined those systems would become weapons. The first communication from Earth came through encrypted quantum channels, a transmission that was equal parts scientific data, strategic instructions, and pure human defiance. The Zornak might have superior ships, but they were about to learn that humanity's true strength was in its ability to turn anything into a potential tool of resistance. Reconfigure the hydroponic systems. The transmission read. Turn them into electromagnetic pulse generators. Most research teams would have hesitated. Amara's team started working before the message finished downloading. The lunar retirement community became an unexpected nerve center of resistance. What the Zornak saw as a collection of elderly humans, the Resistance saw as a network of experienced problem solvers with nothing to lose and everything to prove. Robert Chen, a 73-year-old retired computer programmer, had spent decades developing complex software systems. Now, he was coordinating a global network of electronic warfare specialists from a community center with a view of the lunar landscape. They think we're weak, he told his team of fellow retirees. We're going to show them what human experience really means. Mining colonies in the asteroid belt transformed overnight. Communication arrays became signal jamming stations. Extraction equipment was modified into potential defensive systems. Every human settlement became a potential battleground. Every piece of equipment a potential weapon. The Resistance wasn't centralized. It wasn't hierarchical. It was a living, breathing organism of human innovation. A small research station in Antarctica discovered how to use its climate monitoring equipment to create massive electromagnetic interference patterns. A team of marine biologists in the Pacific adapted underwater research technologies into potential communication disruption systems. The Zornak had prepared for a conventional invasion. They had not prepared for a resistance that could turn scientific research into warfare, that could transform every human settlement into a potential threat. On Mars, Amara's team worked with a precision that would have impressed any military strategist. Hydroponic growth chambers became pulse generators. Atmospheric monitoring equipment was modified into sophisticated sensor networks. The entire base became a single adaptive defensive system. We're not just surviving, Amara told her team. We're proving something fundamental about humanity. In the lunar retirement community, Robert Chen was coordinating a global network of electronic warfare that would have been impossible for any centralized military to achieve. Retired engineers, computer specialists, scientists who had been waiting for one last challenge. Each human settlement became a node in a massive, distributed network of resistance. No single point could be neutralized. No single strategy could be predicted. The Zornak had studied human technology. They had not studied human spirit. A communication research station in Chill discovered a method of creating communication interference that could potentially blind entire alien fleet sections. A group of high school students in Tokyo developed an algorithm that could potentially disrupt alien targeting systems. Every piece of human knowledge became a potential weapon. Every human became a potential combatant. The invasion had begun, but the real war was just starting. And humanity was just getting started. The first global broadcast came unexpectedly. It wasn't a military transmission. It wasn't a scientific report. It was a piece of art that would become the first salvo in humanity's cultural warfare. Maya Lindberg, a 28-year-old multimedia artist from Stockholm, had been working on an experimental project when the invasion began. What started as a personal creative exploration became a weapon more powerful than any missile. Her piece was a massive multi-layered digital artwork that simultaneously existed as music, visual art, and a complex communication protocol. Algorithms woven through visual patterns, musical frequencies that carried hidden data, a piece of art that was simultaneously beauty and information warfare. The Zornak communication analysts would spend months trying to fully decode it. Around the world, artists, musicians, writers, and creators became the unexpected front line of resistance. This wasn't just about fighting. This was about storytelling, about proving that humanity's greatest weapon was its capacity for creation. In Mumbai, a collective of street artists began creating massive murals that doubled as sophisticated communication networks. Each brush stroke contained quantum-encoded information. Each color choice was a potential communication channel. A group of comedians weaponized humor itself. Their stand-up routines became encrypted communication platforms. Jokes that seemed nonsensical to alien listeners carried complex strategic information. Punchlines became coded messages. The global broadcasting networks transformed overnight. News became performance. Performance became resistance. Diego Alvarez, the former marketing expert who had become a key strategic communication specialist, understood the profound nature of this cultural response. We're not just sending messages, he explained in an encrypted transmission. We're sending our entire cultural DNA, something they cannot possibly understand. Musicians composed symphonies that were also complex mathematical algorithms. Writers created novels where the narrative structure itself was a form of communication. Every piece of human creativity became a potential weapon. A group of linguists discovered something profound. Human language, with its idioms, its context-dependent meanings, its constant evolution, was itself a form of encryption that no alien system could fully comprehend. In Tokyo, a team of game designers created interactive experiences that were simultaneously art, communication protocol, and psychological warfare. Each game was a puzzle, each narrative a potential transmission of human resilience. The Zornak had studied human technology. They had analyzed human military capabilities. They had not prepared for human creativity. Social media platforms became sophisticated communication networks. Memes transformed into complex information systems. Every cultural expression became a potential method of resistance. A viral dance challenge contained sophisticated sensor interference patterns. A poetry collection encoded strategic communication protocols. A children's cartoon series carried complex mathematical algorithms that could potentially disrupt alien communication systems. Humanity wasn't just resisting. It was telling its story. Artists in Sao Paulo created street art that was simultaneously beautiful and a massive, distributed sensor network. Musicians in New Orleans composed pieces that carried encrypted communication channels. Writers in Cairo created narratives that were themselves complex computational systems. The cultural counteroffensive proved something fundamental. Humanity's true strength was not in its technology. It was in its capacity to create. to reimagine, to transform everything, even art itself, into a potential method of survival. The Zornak had come expecting a conventional invasion. They had not prepared for a species that could turn creativity itself into a weapon of unprecedented complexity. The moment of ultimate confrontation arrived with a peculiar lack of drama. No massive space battles, no earth-shattering explosions, just a complex, multi-dimensional conflict that defied every known understanding of warfare. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood in the Global Coordination Center, a facility that looked more like a creative studio than a military command post. Screens filled with impossible data streams. Holographic displays showed communication networks that shifted and changed faster than any tracking system could follow. "They're trying to understand us," she said quietly. And that's their biggest mistake. The Zornak had prepared for every conventional scenario. Massive fleet engagements, planetary bombardments, systematic destruction of infrastructure. They had not prepared for a species that could turn an entire civilization into a living, breathing resistance mechanism. On Mars, Dr. Amara Okoye's research team had transformed the entire agricultural research base into a sophisticated electronic warfare platform. Hydroponic systems became pulse generators. Atmospheric monitoring equipment created massive interference patterns. The entire base was now a single adaptive defensive system. In the lunar retirement community, Robert Chen's network of retired tech specialists had created a communication system so complex and distributed that it was essentially impossible to neutralize. Each node was both a communication point and a potential disruptive mechanism. The invasion had become something entirely different from what the Zornak had anticipated. Quantum communication channels carried messages that were simultaneously art, scientific data, and strategic communication. Cultural broadcasts became weapon systems. Every human expression was now a potential method of resistance. Diego Alvarez, the former marketing specialist who had become a key strategic communication expert, had discovered something profound. The Zornak's technological superiority was also their greatest weakness. Their systems were so complex, so predetermined, that they could not adapt to true randomness. Humanity's strength was its ability to be beautifully, terrifyingly unpredictable. The global research efforts had produced technologies that seemed to break fundamental laws of physics. Communication systems that existed outside traditional spacetime. Adaptive shielding that could change its molecular structure faster than any targeting system could track. A team of neural network specialists had developed an AI system that was less a traditional artificial intelligence and more a living, evolving organism of pure possibility. It could generate strategies so unexpected that they defied traditional computational models. The Zornak found themselves fighting an enemy that was not a single entity, but a distributed, constantly evolving network of resistance. Military strategies became works of art. Scientific research became a form of warfare. Cultural expression became a communication system more complex than any alien technology could comprehend. "We're not just defending," Admiral Rodriguez explained during a global transmission. "We're demonstrating something fundamental about the nature of intelligence, of possibility." The final confrontation was not about destruction. It was about transformation. Humanity was rewriting the very concept of conflict, not through superior firepower, but through an ability to adapt, to create, to reimagine possibility itself. The Zornak had studied human technology. They had analyzed human military capabilities. They had not prepared for a species that could turn every limitation into an opportunity. A species that could transform an invasion into a moment of collective reimagining. As the alien ships hovered, uncertain, humanity was just getting started. The aftermath was not what anyone expected. Humanity didn't seek revenge, didn't demand reparations. Instead, they offered something far more profound: understanding. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the forefront of the first diplomatic contact, the same woman who had been in the Jupiter research station when the invasion began. Her hands, which had once danced across quantum communication interfaces during humanity's darkest hour, now extended in a gesture of unexpected grace. "We're not here to conquer," she told the stunned Zornak diplomatic delegation. "We're here to understand." The galactic community watched in collective astonishment. Hundreds of civilizations had been conquered by the Zornak. None had ever responded with anything but fear or absolute hatred. Humanity was writing an entirely new chapter of interstellar relations. The technologies developed during the conflict weren't weaponized. They were shared. Quantum communication systems that could bridge impossible distances. Adaptive medical technologies that could revolutionize healthcare across species. Agricultural innovations that could transform barren worlds into living ecosystems. Each breakthrough became a tool of diplomacy, not destruction. Diego Alvarez, the marketing expert turned communication strategist, helped design a new framework of interstellar communication. It wasn't about translation. It was about genuine understanding. Cultural exchange programs were established, not as a form of soft power, but as a genuine attempt to bridge fundamental differences. The Zornak discovered something they had never encountered, a species that saw conflict as an opportunity for mutual growth. Marcus Rodriguez, who had transformed a research station into a fortress of human innovation, now led initiatives developing collaborative technological platforms. Research centers were established that brought together species from across the galaxy, with humans acting as catalysts of innovation. "We had sticks and stones" became a galactic phrase of hope and resilience, a reminder that technological superiority meant nothing without the capacity for adaptation, creativity, and genuine understanding. The United Nations transformed into a truly global, and eventually interstellar, platform of collaboration. Not a political body, but a living network of human potential. Every culture, every perspective became a valuable piece of a larger puzzle. Scientific research became a form of diplomacy. Cultural exchange became a method of conflict resolution. The very concept of warfare was reimagined. Alien civilizations that had long been oppressed by the Zornak found in humanity unexpected allies. Not saviors, but partners. Collaborative problem solvers who approached every challenge with a combination of creativity, empathy, and relentless innovation. Dr. Amara Okoye, who had transformed a Martian agricultural base into a defensive platform, now led initiatives developing sustainable ecosystem technologies for multiple species. Her work became a bridge between worlds, quite literally transforming barren planets into living environments. The Zornak leadership, once convinced of their absolute technological superiority, underwent a fundamental transformation. They began to study human potential not as a threat, but as a profound lesson in the nature of intelligence, of possibility. Humanity hadn't just survived an invasion. They had reimagined the very concept of interstellar civilization. "We had sticks and stones," the phrase continued. "They had starships. We still won." But winning, humanity had discovered, was never about destruction. It was about understanding, about transformation, about the infinite potential that emerges when diverse perspectives come together with genuine curiosity and respect. The galaxy would never be the same.